Thank you for auditing the always positive, unedited new music review show hosted by a French professor who's going to be reviewing the new album by Estee, Nack, Nacksaw, Duggan. And obviously, this is produced, curated by Westside Gunn, and he's done it again. So, like, what can you do? He might as well just start a subscription service, and you give him $50 a month, and he sends you out a new album, because it seems as though he is constantly putting out great music, constantly finding great artists to work with. It is just astounding. This is a very, very good album. It might be the best Griselda or Griselda affiliate album of the year so far, and there have already been quite a few good ones, and I'm excited to talk about it. Part of the reason why I'm excited to talk about it is I don't know this artist very well. I knew he was on Peace Fly God, a project which, to be honest, I didn't love as much as other Griselda projects. But he's a very interesting character for me because I grew up in Massachusetts. So I grew up in a part of Boston that's a very sort of Tony part of Boston. Very the western suburbs are sort of where the more well-to-do, professional class, white-collar people live. And then the sort of North Shore and South Shore of Boston are less so. So I was like such a snob. I didn't know I was a snob. I didn't know the difference even between North Shore and South Shore. I thought that Quincy was on the North Shore, and if you're from Boston, that's funny. Up until I dated someone who was from the town of Malden, which at that point was a pretty working class town. That's changed a bit since then. And then I started to learn a little bit about sort of the way that the towns up there are conceived of. And the thing about Lynn is that Lynn is where he's from. In Massachusetts, it's like a shorthand. Like you say Lynn, and there's an immediate flood of preconceived notions that come in, usually tied around criminality and immigration. And obviously, what do we call these preconceived notions? Racism, xenophobia, okay? But I grew up, and the only thing I knew about Lynn, two things. One is there's a little song that you sing when you bounce kids on your knee. Trot, trot to Boston, trot, trot to Lynn, trot, trot to Rochester, we all fall in. And then you drop the kid at the end. So I grew up loving Lynn because of that. I'd never been there. And then the other thing is this little children's rhyme that people say, Lynn, Lynn, city of sin, you don't come out the way you came in. And that's all. That's all that I've ever known. So I'm happy to have music that comes from that place because I've now been there a couple of times. There's a really good sandwich shop there. And it's just a real place, It's not one thing or another. It's a very cosmopolitan city. It has its nicer parts of town, its rougher parts of town, and it's sort of representing Boston in an interesting way because our image of Boston is very clouded with a sort of Irish whiteness. And the reality of Boston is that it's a real city. Like any other real city, it has great hip-hop made by people from across the spectrum. There's a weird thing where I think Boston hip-hop was stunted by the fact that it was so closely associated with the Source magazine, that the sort of the biggest group in rap was very affiliated with the Source, and I think it sort of delegitimized them in the eyes of many other people. That's a pet theory which I have. I have no idea if it's correct. So as a Massachusetts, I don't live there anymore. I live in Western New York, but you always associate with where you grow up, And then the fact that he is of Dominican. He is of first or second generation Dominican immigrant from the Dominican Republic. And this is where things get interesting for me because Boston is historically not particularly welcoming to immigrants. Take my grandparents. They were not very welcoming of the Irish immigrants who were fleeing famine and death, okay? They should have been. Land of plenty. We have more land and resources than we know what to do with in this country, but that didn't stop my grandparents from being racist against Irish people, okay? That is just a historical fact. And now there's a large population of immigrants from Hispaniola, Hispaniola. I don't know how to pronounce that in English. The island that contains Haiti and the Dominican Republic. If you know anything about me, I work a lot on Haiti. And the story of Haiti and the Dominican Republic is fascinating, how they interact. But obviously in America, there's much more of a presence of people from the Dominican Republic because of our national pastime being perfected by players from the Dominican Republic. I'm, of course, talking about baseball. So it's funny because if you're from Boston, which is called a racist city, I don't think it's more racist than any other city. I think that it's sort of a scapegoat for how racist most cities are. But that's neither here nor there. And what do I know? My lived experience is as a white guy. So maybe it really is more racist. You can tell me in the comments if you have personal experience. I believe your personal experience over my hunch any day. But as a city, which, all right, fine, Boston is racist. But the way that is racist is interesting. It's often around sports, or at least the way that I perceive of it is around sports. And in particular, our desire to have white superstars. Part of the reason why Larry Bird is such a problematic figure, being the third best player in Celtics history, after Bill Russell and, of course, Marcus Smart. Part of the reason why Larry Bird is so troublesome is he's sort of this great white hope that feeds into whatever kind of racism exists in Boston, is often can be filtered into a love of Larry Bird, who realistically doesn't deserve that. He doesn't deserve to be the favorite player of racists. He's just a great basketball player who treated people like equals and was a son of a bitch to everybody. I love Larry Bird, but not because he's white, But when we're talking about the greatest players in Boston history, you got Bobby Orr, you got Marcus Smart, sure, you got Ted Williams, you got Tom Brady, but the most loved? It's got to be David Ortiz. It has to be Big Papi. My kids call me Papi because I like Big Papi so much. When I have grandkids, I'm going to ask them to call me Big Papi. So there's a kind of a paradox where Bostonians have a fair amount of racism, like many cities do, towards immigration, and there's a large amount of immigrants who come from the Dominican Republic. Yet, their greatest hero, this is our effing city, okay? The guy who broke the curse, like, by far, the most fun athlete I have ever seen play in a Boston uniform is this guy who was born in the Dominican Republic. And it gets to the question of where society as a whole loves the individual, but hates the collective. And that is an experience which is experienced by basically any successful member of a minority who feels as though their culture is hated while they are loved individually. I think of Blacker the Berry by Kendrick Lamar. You hate me, don't you? That kind of sentiment. So this is a long way of giving a little meditation on the racism of the place where this guy comes from, and the idea that the most famous Bostonian might be a guy from the Dominican Republic in terms of my lifetime, in terms of heroes of sports. And what makes it so interesting for me is, Big Papi, he almost died. He got shot. He almost got murdered in the Dominican Republic. And we don't really talk about why, but the reality is obviously the Dominican Republic, a lot of people who become famous who come from there don't come from rich families. They manage to make their way out through baseball, and it's not like that life leaves them behind. And there's sort of like a realness to David Ortiz that he covers up with that big smile, and he does all these advertisements for Dunkin' Donuts and D'Angelo Sub Shop. He's a big smile, hey, happy guy, but he's also a guy who might get murdered in a bar, And bring this all together in with this music to say that Estee Nack is interesting, and this album is interesting because it is, like much hip-hop in America, partly about the black experience, but also it's about the immigrant experience. And if there's one thing studying French hip-hop has taught me, is that the immigrant experience is a whole nother kind of voiceless. It's a whole different kind of alienation. And that is felt throughout this album, and it's often enforced through his usage of language. Not just Spanish, but as far as I can tell with my intermediate Spanish, a very specific dialect of Dominican Spanish. Like he says, escúchame, as opposed to escúchame, which is like, where did the S go? If you want me to listen to you, why aren't you pronouncing the S? I don't know. I assume that's a Dominican thing. But just by using another language, by using that dialect, he does a thing which happens in a lot of rap that comes from immigrants or children of immigrants, where in order to fully understand them, you have to have their experience. You have to speak English, you have to speak slang, you have to speak Spanish, and probably you have to speak Dominican Spanish. So it is a statement of, I am here, I am contributing to the society which rejects me on my race and on my origin. I am not afraid, and my people are visible. My people matter. Not just the people of Lynn, not just people of color, not just immigrants, all of it. And that's the beauty of immigration. That's why our country is great. America is great because of immigrants, not in spite of immigrants. So, you want to make America great again? Jesus Christ, have you seen what our foreign policy has done to the rest of the world? And we dare to close our borders? Damn. Anyways, I'm getting pretty political here. I actually just got off of a Zoom call. I was on a Zoom call with a guy named Sam Buck, who you probably know if you're watching this channel. He's a comedian and podcaster. And he is a really smart guy because he figured out how to just interview like everybody in the underground rap scene. So if you watch my videos and you don't know the Bucked Up podcast, it doesn't make sense. Like the circles of our listenership should the Venn diagram should just be a circle. You know what I mean? So it was great because I used his interview with Estee Nack from a year ago as research, and it helped me to get a better view of who Estee Nack is. So I'm going to include a link to that video in my description. And I recorded like an hour and a half interview with him. So if you want to know more about Professor Skye, watch me getting interviewed. Watch that. But it's interesting because he's sort of Estee Nack comes across sort of super stoned. He says things that are like preposterously like silly. Like, I believe in predestination as long as I decide everything. It's like that's the opposite of predestination. Like, just say you don't believe in predestination. But what makes Buck such a good interviewer is he gives a lot of space. He does conversations, not interviews, which makes it much, much better. It's like old school, like 70s Michael Douglas style interviews, not like, Jimmy Fallon. Like, so tell me about the next project. What was it like working with Westside Gunn? It's a lot more conversational. And then you realize it's actually this whole spiritual journey. Like, you go on a whole spiritual journey where you learn how he grew up in a certain faith and then converted to Islam and then decided that he was a god. And it's interesting because you see that actually a lot is going on. And he sort of covers it up with these kind of silly sentences. But what comes clear in the interview, and then the more you listen to the music, the more you see there's a very rich internal life, a very rich spiritual quest that's sort of papered over with these kind of ludicrous sentences like, I believe in predestination if I decide everything. Which is actually, now I'm starting to think, is actually pretty brilliant. That's that is a brilliant destruction of predestination because it's pretending to accept it while rejecting it. Another interesting thing is at a certain point he gets sort of embarrassed about how old he is. And this is one thing I want to say about Griselda, and Sam Buck and I talk about this a fair amount on the podcast. But part of what makes the whole Griselda moment so great is that age is now not the limiting factor in rap music. Obviously, Nas is still making best-selling albums, so that's one indication, and so was Kanye before he blew up. But people can come out, people can be underground for years, and they can poke out and have real success like this album is. And can we just thank the Griselda and the Buffalo and the drum work? All those guys deserve so much credit for, one thing I say is they are doing an amazing job of highlighting female rappers. And despite the fact that their music is often quite misogynist, they are doing more than any other rap label has ever done to promote female rappers. But also, Westside Gunn knows he has power. He knows, I've never listened to an Estee Nack album. I've just never listened to it. I've missed it. I'm sure they're good. I've missed it. But Westside Gunn puts his name on it. I'm going to listen. And moreover, I'm going to buy this damn album because it's that good. And so, yeah, Estee Nack is old. Old in rap terms. I don't know. He's probably 30. Who knows? But it's actually that he is finally getting his shot. And Westside Gunn is able to use his power to be good power. And on this interview, he shows how he's very humble. If he doesn't know an answer, he just says, I don't know. He shows that his love of rap started with hearing Big Noid, which is a pretty deep cut Queensbridge rapper. And then you sort of really get a sense of someone who really cares about rap, who really cares about his craft without taking himself too seriously. Which brings us to this album. Okay, just just give me a second before I talk about Estee Nack to just give Westside Gunn even more props. Okay, he is really, and I am. This is what I'm assuming. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But I'm assuming that Westside Gunn is why this album is so weird. This album is deeply weird. But it's deeply weird for the way that it's produced and the way that Estee Nack is up. Like, his voice is there. Like, the beat. It's like... And then his voice is so upfront. And by the time you're done listening to the album, you're in love with his voice, with his flow, which he keeps varied, with his rhymes, with his punchlines, with his mixture of English and Spanish, that you don't even really care about these beats anymore. And sometimes the beats are so weird, you can't even believe that somebody paid for them. There's a Conductor Williams beat on here where you're like, is this even a beat? Was this a joke? Is this a joke beat just for farts? Like, what is this beat? I'm not making fun of the beat. I love Conductor Williams. But I assume this is Westside Gunn's brilliance. That he knows the best thing about Estee Nack is his voice, is the attack that he has, is his ability to play with language and play with words. So let's just put that right up front, and everything else can be behind, just absolutely behind. Now, I know that other people have done this. I know that the drumless movement in hip-hop often means that rappers' voices are up front and the beats are backwards. But this feels like an extension. It feels like we are drifting further into abstraction. And I think it's because Westside Gunn is so good at doing what he does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it down with two songs, which I think show the dynamism of the album. Right in the dead center, the center cuts of this album. Angel Dior, produced by J.R. Swift's. It's funny because how many producers are they going to find? How many producers, like, in my mind, and tell me if you're a Griselda fan, if you're like me, I picture it as like baseball. I guess I like baseball. I think a lot about baseball. But like there's like major league, there's your major league producers. And then there's your minor league producers who are hoping to get promoted, So like Conductor Williams is a major league Griselda producer, And like Danny LaFleur, he got the call up maybe last year or the year before, and he's up there too. And then like these new folks pop up, and it's like you're playing on career mode. You're like, well, J.R. Swift obviously isn't in the major leagues, but he's down there and he's playing with the AAA team, and he's just knocking the hell out the ball to the point where eventually, like if I like there are certain producers, your Craven and Alchemist and Conductor, where like if they release an album and they're the sole producers, I will listen to that album just because of them. But as it's been happening, because I'm not like some underground rap guy, I don't spend all my days on underground rap blogs, I don't really know the whole history. That's not my whole thing. It's great to just see these names pop up and get familiar with them. And then next time I'm reading a liner notes and I see that J.R. Swift's is on a beat, I'm going to say great. Because this is not like a super... This is an example of the more sort of meat and potatoes style Griselda beat. It's just a fairly standard style beat. But there's cool weird noises in the back, like almost like little crowd things. And then we get to Estee Nack himself, where he has this like singing chorus, which according to Genius is inspired by Angel Dior, who's the name of who the song is named after, who's a Dominican like rapper, reggaeton, rap guy. I don't know what his genre is, but it's inspired by the song AIO, and holy cow, that's a banger. If you listen to that song, I use the word banger. I don't like using the word banger. I'm 45 years old. It should not be legal for me to use the word banger. I will just say it is nifty. It is a absolutely nifty, radical, and tubular song I'd never heard before. Listen to it. Listen to AIO by Angel Dior. It makes me want to just go into a rabbit hole of Dominican rap. And then his voice is just so great. Super, super high in the mix. And it starts off with this chorus, And there's hard to find lyrics to this album, so this is the main one I'm going to be quoting here. Early in the morning, we package in La Purina. I assume that means like the pure cocaine, or it means Purina, like Purina dog chow, which would mean heroin. I don't know, but in the AIO song they say Purina, which I assume means pure cocaine. I doubt they know Purina dog food in the Dominican Republic, but I don't know what kind of dog food they have in the Dominican Republic. You wouldn't think I'm fathering rappers in Argentina. Come picture me in Paris, I'm sipping the Orangina. This guy's been to Paris. Okay? You know people who've been to Paris and people who maybe been to Paris. If you're an American and you go to Paris, one of the first things you do is you drink Orangina. Can you drink Orangina in America? Of course you can. But when you go to Paris, when you go to those little cafes or whatever, and you have a choice of drinks, it's basically always Coca, Orangina. Always have a choice of Orangina. So he's actually really flexing that he's really been. Drop the package, take the bread, then I dip in a foreign beamer. Okay. You're just looking for syllables there. You can't have a domestic beamer. All beamers are BMWs. They're all foreign. All from the Bavarian Motorwerks. Trying to execute my vision, my end. I've been a dreamer. This ish is booming like Nagasaki and Hiroshima. She says she loved the feeling when I get between her. Keep playing. I'm probably going to turn her just like Tina. R.I.P. Selena. Come get with this crowd pleaser. It's just weird because Tina Turner died yesterday. All my friends are pretending like they've loved Tina Turner their whole life, which is weird. Tina Turner's great. The Ike and Tina stuff is awesome, but weird. Anyways. So it's like he says R.I.P. Selena, but the album came out like within a week of Tina Turner dying. So that's odd. And then just the verses are just so great. He just has these great, crazy verses. And actually reading it out loud is less impressive than listening to it. Tarzan, Guns in the Ghetto, I guess it's God Plan, sniff the wrong package up, quick, get the Narcan, 4-5, Smith & Wesson, blacker than Law, the Dark Man, 50 Rock, B-Word is poppin' just like a park jam, You'll voir the Lynn, Mass Heartlands, Adex, Cali Sesh, Alley Steppin', Ends blowing they weapons like clarinets. Blowing their weapons like clarinets, that's great. Tying in Lynn, had him sweating, smoking the best of them like a bag of wet, Sunshot N on Lafayette. Boston is a weird place. I grew up there when it was like a prosperous city, but now it's just stupid prosperous. I looked up real estate on Lafayette. So here's a song where we're talking about like Narcan and selling fentanyl and shooting somebody on Lafayette. If you look up Lafayette real estate in Lynn, Massachusetts, there's a house for sale for $760,000. It's a little tiny, crappy little house, like you would see like in that movie Mystic River. I'll go get me a regular kid. That kind of like little house, $760,000. Anyways, hey, by the way, if you're from Boston and you want to live somewhere that's a lot like Boston was 30 years ago, come to Rochester, New York. It's great. And then has like a Dominican pop music outro. And I found it. It's by someone named Wilfredo Vargas. Mami, que será lo que quiere el negro? Mama, what will the black one want? It's this weird... Sorry, my dog Bo is walking into the room and he makes a lot of noise when he walks. Bo, are you done? Can you please just go sit down on your dog bed? Please. Thank you, sire. Okay. So it's cool because this is like an old style Dominican song, and then he's sampling a rap song, or he's quoting a rap song in the chorus. So if you're just a dumb white guy like me who doesn't know anything about Dominican music, you hear the song and you go, banger, banger. Super nifty, nipper keen rap song by the Griselda clique that I like so much. Yay, Griselda, right? By the way, in Boston, they will often take off an R and add it to a word that shouldn't be. So there's a possibility there's someone out there talking about, you like that Griselda music? So we have the new music and the old music. So if you are of Dominican descent, you probably grew up with this song by Wilfredo Vargas playing in the background. It probably connects you to home. And then this modern music that he's quoting is sort of, if you're paying attention to music now. So it's sort of this very subtle, huge statement of Dominican musical pride. Just like, bam! I listened to Angel Dior and Wilfredo Vargas because of this song, and both those songs are great. Totally different styles. My musical world is now opened to the Dominican Republic. I have now, for the first time in my life, listened to music by the Dominican Republic because of Estee Nack. That's what music can do. Did Poppy get me to listen to Dominican music? No. I'm not saying anything bad about Poppy, though. Even though he probably did steroids. It's okay. Hey, Boston fans. Our whole team was probably juiced up. But don't worry about it. It's okay. Then the next song, Green Cellophane. So I like these songs back to back. This is Camouflage Monk, another Major League Griselda producer. Definitely, he's definitely on the starting nine. He's not hitting cleanup, but he's probably hitting second or fifth. I think I'd put Camouflage Monk second or fifth. Just a great drumless beat, and this is that wildness I'm talking about. That there's a degree to which this drumless stuff is getting weirder and weirder. Basically no drums. It's like the end of a phrase has a whole beat. Da, da, da. Then you get the Griselda tag, and then the thing about Estee Nack is that he is just filled with charisma. He is just talking and cool. So he does his own ad-libs. So he's like talking, and there's these ad-libs with echoes, and it's in Spanish, and it's in English, and he just like starts off rapping, "Hey yo son," and then he gets days, which rhymes. He does a whole series of rhymes with the word days, a whole like run with the word sealin', a whole like, then this whole chorus where it's kind of like, the way he sings is kind of like the way Westside Gunn sings. But it's not that, it's, Westside Gunn goes to 10 on the sort of like sing-songy, nasally stuff. This is like at 5. And it's great. Like so I'm just putting these thoughts through my head right now. I want to make sure I want to use the proper word. Would I say he is a great singer in hip hop? Yes. I think this is as good as singing gets in hip hop. If it's any better than this, then it's just an R&B guy who also raps. If it's any worse than this, it's a rap guy who shouldn't be singing. It's like the exact center point of where you want how you want someone to be singing. Just very catchy, very cool. He gets like breathless at the end of this verse. I don't know if this is. It could be that I am being a racist jerk. It could be that I know that, he's Latin and Big Pun is Latin, so I'm thinking he reminds me of Big Pun. He does remind me of Big Pun, but that could be because I'm being racist, okay? So tell me in the comments, do you hear it too, or is it just bias? Because you're like, that guy speaks Spanish, so they rap the same. I don't think they rap the same, but there's a certain amount of like breath control and ease, and obviously mixing in some Spanish expressions, but not really that. It's more like an ease with the flow that I think comes from great breath control. That's why he reminds me of Big Pun, but maybe I'm just being racist. I don't know. Brian Scalabrine is just, he's the same. He plays the same way as Larry Bird. Very cerebral. I can't believe I said people in Boston. I just don't want people to let other cities off the hook for being racist. Yes, Boston is racist, but too often people just say that and then that helps them to feel better about their own city. Just the great singing at the end, just charismatic and easy. He's basically singing to the song Money by Pink Floyd. It's like almost like, I get the sense that maybe he was listening to, I don't know, 100.7 ZLX. Is that still a station? Maybe he was listening to classic rock radio and he heard Money and he just put that there. I'm going to go through the rest of the album stupid quick, okay? Because I think those two songs really show. They show more standard Griselda, the more far out there stuff. The commonality between them is Nack is a great rap artist. Westside Gunn is a great album producer. And they came together to make a great rap album. Nack Man Coltrane is the first track. Danny LaFleur again. Tucker Carlson makes an appearance here. It is my greatest wish that Tucker Carlson files a complaint against Griselda Records and tries to sue them, and that Griselda Records becomes huge because of the lawsuit. I think that would just be great. And then I hope Tucker Carlson gets some kind of venereal disease that brings him, not kill him, but very close to death. I don't wish death on anybody. But, you know, venereal disease for being hateful, for spreading hate. Can you get venereal disease by spreading hate? Tell me in the comments. Have you liked this video, by the way? I forgot to ask you. Have you smashed the like bucket? I like it when you do. Be a lot cooler if you did. Okay. But it makes sense that Tucker's on here because he's talking about Hacksaw Jim Duggan. It's weird because I asked Woods, because someone wanted me to ask about his favorite wrestlers of all time, and Woods doesn't care about wrestling, so I don't even know why I asked him that question. But the only wrestler that Kenny Siegel and Billy Woods said would be on their Hall of Fame was Hacksaw Jim Duggan. So there you go. Me, I'm a Coco Beware guy, but what can I say? Very cool, like horn blares. His voice is super cool, very cocaine stuff there. But all the way throughout this album, there's all these news reports about how the Dominican Republic is becoming a very big place for importing and transmitting drugs. And this is just another little political reminder for you, okay? The war on drugs is being fought. And the war zones are in South America, in Central America, are in the Caribbean. Like, the refugees from the war on drugs, it's because of our war on drugs that those situations are happening, that those people are trying to leave and come into our place. So it's not like the caravan of refugees are leaving their place that is torn apart, and the place is torn apart for no reason. It's quite often, principally, because the war on drugs makes it so profitable and so dangerous to import drugs. So the Dominicans who are making all this money and then fleeing to come here to make a better life is partly because of this terrible war on drugs. We've already discussed on this channel many times what it does to the African American population, but what it does to South America and Central America is devastating. So again, that's why I'm saying, you want to make America great again, first of all, our culture needs immigration, okay? Just it needs it. What kind of food would we eat? Okay, what would we... British food? Okay. If we stopped immigration at my folks, okay, when they came over from England and Scotland, we'd be eating English food in this place. English food. You ever eaten English food? Man. Beyond that, it's a moral duty to help recompense this war that we've been fighting, and for which I mean the people in power in America, don't really pay for. So it's a very political thing. I know he might be using it to try and sound badass, you know, but these problems are systematic. Every time we talk about the crack trade, it is a condemnation of American foreign policy and American domestic policy. It is the American failure that created the crack epidemic, not the people who sell the crack. Don't get it twisted around, okay? Mass Money Wires featuring Al Divino, another Massachusetts guy, great. Oddly, again, it's just, when I first heard it, it's just super oddly mixed. Great spoken word at the end, lots of echoes. Was Makami the first guy to do that? The sort of like long discussion with echoes, cool low piano hits, more stuff about the cocaine ticket out of the ghetto from a news report. All those like severely racist coded news reports. Then we get the Bunductor, we have a problem. Again, my son tried to have conductor, we have a problem as his senior quote in his yearbook. The school would not let him because they typed in conductor, we have a problem, and the first song that came up was a Westside Gunn song, and they said that's not acceptable because Westside Gunn promotes violence. To which he said, he wrote a letter and said, how come you're allowing Winston Churchill quotes? And that guy was responsible for a famine that killed tens of thousands of people. Is that okay? What can I say? I'm a proud dad. It's a pretty gangster move. It didn't work. He still didn't get to have conductor. We have a problem in there. Ooh, speaking of my son, that's him coming in. I'm going to have to tell him to be quiet. And just 1 second. Hey, oh, actually, I'm doing a video. Is your brother with you?
No.
Okay.
He'll be coming later.
Okay, so can you just go upstairs because I don't want to edit the video. And I'll ask you to walk the dogs when I'm done. I have like a couple more minutes of the album left. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, you have a crew in like an hour.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Anyways, when I say unedited, I mean unedited. But this is the weirdest conductor beat I've ever heard. Totally weird, totally drumless. Just this bass is way in the back, Spanish all in here. Then we get to the middle section with Angel Dior on Green Cellophane, which I've already discussed. Fetty Guerrero, produced by Daniel Flair again, featuring Aldovino again. Just a great attacking style. A very strange, ominous outro. This album is so ominous. Strawberry Milk. I suppose you probably got that at Cumbies. Cumberland Farms is a place where Massachusetts people like to get strawberry milk. It sounds almost like an impression sample, like an outro there. It's like a full beat, but now there's like a full beat here. I realize I don't need beats. This guy's voice does all the rhythm. Knowledge Wisdom is just a bunch of 5%er stuff. It's okay. You know, I've my whole life, I've grown up with the precepts of the Nation of Islam and its offshoots. Thanks to rap music. Toby, there's enough dog noise going on in this video. I don't need you digging up the dog bed. I don't need you digging up the dog bed. So it's fine. I don't ever need to hear this stuff again because it always sounds silly to me, but it's fine. We Made History, produced by CG. Don't know who that is, but great, simple synthesizer line with echoes. Uplifting theme, kind of about making history. But this is the great thing. This song and some parts of the experimental aspect of this album, it manages to do what the kids call vibes, but also bars. And that's hard to have bars and vibes, you know? This album has both. Many mention Bartell. I don't know what's up with all the bees all over the place. Is this some gang thing? I don't know. Iwoni is the producer here. Getting a call up to the bigs, you know? I don't know this producer. It's weird because I do wonder if Griselda doesn't like protect their producers even from other Griselda projects. Like I think Drumworks has like the best rappers in the whole Griselda universe. But their production recently has at times been a little bit pedestrian. I wonder if there's like a sort of hierarchy where like, I don't know. Why am I trying to start stuff? I don't know. Gotta earn your stripes like Waldo, burn dope money like Marlboro. He makes a rhyme with Don Juan DeMarco. That's how you're aging yourself. With that forgettable Johnny Depp vehicle. Talk Commando, produced by Crucial the Guillotine. Another one of these guys I'd never heard of before, but who's making great Griselda-style beats, especially the bass line in here. We had some Westside Gunn in here. Then we have the conclusion of the story of Hacksaw Jim Duggan beating someone up. Oh, I should mention, at the end of that first song that I used as a stamp, they actually have Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the wrestler, giving his thumbs up to Nacksaw Jim Duggan, which is nice because, you know, they have all this wrestling stuff and to actually get a clearance from the guy himself. If you don't know Hacksaw Jim Duggan, he had a 2x4 and he'd go, oh, at the end of every battle. I don't know. I used to watch a lot of wrestling up until like 1987. I saw Coco Beware's first match, and I think that was maybe the last wrestling match I ever saw. So that's why I like Coco Beware. Vanilla Skies is a extended meditation on the Tom Cruise vehicle, directed by Cameron Crowe. It's about sort of like existence and reality. No, I'm just kidding. A great boom bap beat that starts off with do 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 do. Great wavy synthesizers, integration of Spanish. Always, I love it. I love this kind of integration of lingualism, of multilingualism into rap music. America is in crisis. Nobody is learning languages. If you are in college and you are not trying to become bilingual, you are really losing out and you are contributing to the dumbing down of America and American cultural hegemony. The effort to be bilingual, I believe, is a moral necessity. And this album helps to prove that. Also, he's just kind of talking a lot in Spanish. I can't pick it out. And he says, hey, okay, at the end. SpaceX is the next song. Cool, relentless flow. Never quite gets started. I have a friend who works for SpaceX. He He loves showing pictures of rockets on his Facebook. But there you go. Then the final track is Old Nack Donald Had a Farm featuring Westside Gunn. Again, Guillotine. It's nice how the back half of the album has Westside Gunn a lot on it. It's like he was giving you a half an album to get used to it. And then at the end, he sort of gives you like, hey, I'm the more famous guy. I'll be on this album now. A very stock but good Griselda beat. Great Westside Gunn verse. I just love his arrogance. I love his presentation. I love this album. So, there you go. The greatest mixture of Boston and the Dominican Republic since Manny Ramirez and Big Papi. By the way, if Manny Ramirez does not go to the Baseball Hall of Fame, there is no purpose to living anymore. Anyways, there's very few people who know who Manny Ramirez who's watching this, so that's fine. Until next time, thank you for watching this. Check out the Bucked Up podcast, the interview. We're doing different things, he and I, but I think if you take what we do and put them together, we're providing an interesting service to this underground rap movement. At least I hope that I'm providing service through my extensive reviews, and he definitely is. So check it out. All right, there's the camera.